It was the morning of Christmas Day, 1914, and in Ypres, Belgium, it was quiet. Eerily quiet. The only sound was a strong winter wind, which felt odd. For the last 6 months, this countryside, like many in Belgium and France, had been filled with the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and death. World War I had started that summer, and hundreds of thousands of men had spent months and months in their trenches, doing whatever they could to survive. But this day, something different was going to happen, and it all started with a song. The Germans had been placing candles on their trenches and started to sing some Christmas carols. On the other side of the war zone, the British and French troops heard them, and they too began singing. They all needed a brief break from the fighting and death. Most of our listeners probably know what happened next. The two sides decided to put down their weapons. They left the trenches and joined each other in the middle of the field, otherwise known as no man's land. They brought presents, such as food, tobacco, and alcohol. They allowed prisoners to be exchanged. They played a game of soccer, or as they would call it, football. They ate, they drank, they sang holiday songs. And for one full day, they put aside their differences and remembered that each and every one of them were human. This Christmas Day truce has become a moment of lore and has been told and retold many times over the years. It's appeared in countless books about the war. A film was made about it. A musical was staged. And it's the kind of story that people love to share over the holidays, to point out what's important to them. Family, friends, food, and looking out for others. So in today's episode, we're going to tell you a new Christmas time during war story, one you may not have heard before. It takes place during World War II's Battle of the Bulge and involves a young boy, a brave mother, some soldiers, some songs, and a fat goose. And like all the best stories, there's a twist at the end that makes you wonder, is this too good to be true? I'm Carrie Varouhakis, and this is a special holiday episode of Army Matters.
Welcome to another episode of Army Matters. I'm your co-host, Sergeant Major of the Army, retired Dan Daly, and my cheery, happy holiday friend is with me today.
Happy.
My co-host,
Lieutenant General retired Leslie C. Smith.
Hey, Les.
Yes.
I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 4 million. Guess what it is?
2 million.
How did you get that?
Because it's right in between. But the real reason why, is that the number that AUSA has gotten in its membership now?
That's it, Les. We have
what? Ding.
We have hit the 2 millionth member.
Okay.
But congratulations to AUSA. And congratulations to all of our listeners out there for helping support our great association.
And we got to thank all the people who did all the hard work in our membership department, right?
Yeah, but I want the people to really think of us. You know, just me and you.
No, we got to give credit where credit is due.
It is the holidays. You're right.
Yeah, it is the holidays. I mean, we may go out and wave at the people.
There's a lot of people behind the scenes that help us look good. That's right. So speaking of our 2 million members, as you know, many of them, or even most of them, probably have served away from their families during the holidays. So what is your most memorable Christmas or holiday moment while you were deployed?
While I was deployed?
Were you ever deployed during Christmas?
Yes.
Just checking.
Yes, I was.
Yes. You were soul searching there. You were soul searching.
Yeah, I think it was my first deployment as a young captain in the 82nd. And you know how the 82nd deploys. It's like you're here today and you're like, phew, going tomorrow. We were in the desert trying to figure everything out. And we spent Christmas there. I think we had just gotten married. So it was the first time really Vanidra was away and then I was away, that we were away from family. But the good thing about it was being there with our team and trying to figure out the things that we had to do because we were all there together, if that makes sense.
So while you were there, did you guys get to engage in Christmas dinner together?
No, they had hamburgers that came from Hardee's. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how you get hamburgers in the desert from Hardee's, but somehow the cooks made it happen. And like, okay, it was either MREs or no. By that time, we had T-Rats and other things set up because that's the first thing after security. You talking about chow.
That's right.
How about you?
So there's a couple. I spent Christmas in Korea, Iraq several times. But when I was a division CSM, we had the opportunity to travel around. And what we decided to do was travel around to the soldiers who never got visited. And we had these 24 soldiers on top of a mountain in northern Iraq, and they literally were running a retrans site all by themselves. I mean, you could drive up to the top of this mountain, but they only got like resupply, once a week or maybe, once every 2 weeks. And we flew in there with the helicopters and had Christmas dinner with them. And they were so excited. Me and the division commander, General Perkins, they were so excited. We just had a great time. And it's those special moments you reflect on that, man, that they could be home with their family, sitting in front of a fireplace, listening to Christmas music in the background. But it's something my mom used to always say is, at least we have each other. Regardless of where you are, we have each other.
That's right.
Yeah. Never asked you this before, but what is your favorite Christmas movie or story? Let's just go with movie. Just go with movie.
Movie?
Mm-hmm.
Christmas Vacation.
Oh, you mean
National Lampoon's?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Yes.
That's your favorite?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's not the same as mine.
What's yours?
Mine's A Christmas Story. Remember Ralphie?
Oh.
Ralphie.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
That's a classic. No. It's an award-winning in both Canada and America. It's like the most watched.
Okay.
I mean, people would say Miracle on 34th Street, which I liked.
Yeah, that's a good one. But you're a movie guy. I'm not a movie guy.
No.
Yeah, you're a movie guy.
Well,
so how about, do you watch Lifetime with your wife over the holidays?
I do not.
Yes, you do.
I don't watch Lifetime. I swear, I don't.
Holly's gonna have you watching Lifetime this Christmas because I'm gonna. Y'all gonna.
We have exactly 15 televisions between Holly and I.
Oh, okay. But you should watch a Lifetime movie with her. I'm going to do it.
Which one?
I don't know.
Miracle.
They do new ones every year. You down?
I'm not going to promise you on that one. No, okay. No promises on the Lifetime thing.
So, Dan, speaking of the holidays, today we're doing something a little different. We have a heartwarming holiday story that took place in World War II. And we're actually bringing in a Army historian.
And we're going to add in some music from our Army Field Band.
So please sit back, roast some marshmallows on the fire, get you some hot chocolate, and enjoy the show.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's Christmas Eve, 1944. It's cold, snowy, and inside a small village home in the Hurtgen forest in northern Belgium, 12-year-old Fritz Vincken is excited for a nice, peaceful Christmas Eve meal. It's been a very tough few months for Fritz and his mother, Elizabeth. They had to flee their home in the town of Aachen, which had been bombarded by fighting between American and German troops. To get away from it all, Fritz's father had moved them to a small village in the forest a few months earlier. But Fritz and Elizabeth had quickly discovered that it was a very dangerous place to be.
By December 24th, 1944, the usual peaceful countryside of Belgium is a raging fire. The Hurtgen Forest was the scene of bloody fighting where the Germans were able to take advantage of the heavily wooded areas to lure the Americans in, really hit them with artillery, where if the artillery goes off in the trees, the bark and the wood chips coming off that splinter off are traveling just as fast as shrapnel. And so the soldiers had to learn that instead of laying down, which is what you do during an artillery or an enemy attack, you had to stand up and basically hug a tree to protect yourself from all that the flying wood chips and the metal. So technically the Army soldiers had to become tree huggers to survive that kind of combat.
That's Kevin Hymel, a writer and World War II expert.
I'm a contract historian for the United States Army, and I am presently finishing a trilogy on General George S. Patton called Patton's War.
Not only has Kevin written a great deal about World War II, an article he published about the 688 all-female battalion entitled Fighting a Two-Front War was made into a film last year by Tyler Perry, starring Carrie Washington. And being the historian he is, Kevin is very familiar with the tale of Fritz Vincken and his family in December 1944.
Elizabeth's husband was a civilian, and he was part of the community. And one of the important things they were doing was making sort of fire breaks through the Ardennes so that if the forest caught fire from the fighting, the fire would not spread. So he was kind of out on patrol that night, making sure no fires were spreading or anything like that.
So Fritz and Elizabeth are on their own that Christmas Eve, trying to find a bit of joy in the midst of a horrible situation. It's warm and cozy inside their new home, and on the fire, Elizabeth has just started cooking a goose saved for this very day. The name of that goose? Goering. Yes, named after Hermann Goering, one of the most brutal of Nazi leaders.
The fact that she names her fat goose Hermann Goering kind of speaks to her exhaustion with the whole Nazi philosophy and fanaticism. And so that's a nice sort of stab at Goering, who is famously obese. And she's a mother of a 12-year-old. I mean, she doesn't want to see this young man go off to war. She wants the war to be over with. And that is pretty much a very prevalent attitude amongst Germans by December 44, January 45, and all the way to the rest of the war.
Just as Fritz is about to set the table for dinner, something happens. Someone knocks on the door. Fritz and Elizabeth look at each other. It can't be Fritz's father. He's still far away from them. So curious but cautious, the two of them open the door. And standing there?
It's 3 Americans, one of whom is injured, has been wounded in combat.
Please, can you help us?
I believe the injury for the American soldier was a leg wound, and he was quite pale when he shows up at the house, so obviously a lot of blood loss. And they basically ask her if they can come in.
Please?
It's not documented exactly which battalion these soldiers were with, but Kevin has some guesses.
There's no stories that really spell it out, but being as they were in Manchu, which is on the northern shoulder of the bulge, that would have been 5th Corps, and that would have either been the 2nd Infantry Division, the Indian Head, or the 99th Infantry Division, the Battling Babies.
Elizabeth knows that if she lets them in and is caught doing so, she could immediately be shot by German soldiers, as could Fritz. But these American soldiers look tired, hungry, injured, and innocent.
So she allows the 3 soldiers in. They lay one down on the bed, the one that's been wounded. And she, invites the other 2 to enjoy dinner with them.
Of course, there are difficulties in communication at first.
Obviously, there are language barriers as the evening starts off because Elizabeth is German, but she does speak French. And one of the American soldiers understands enough French, and I believe Latin, that they are able to communicate.
Fritz has never been this close to American soldiers before. He's a little scared, intimidated, but also excited. Their friendly demeanor quickly wins him over. Elizabeth does everything she can to make them feel at home, and pretty soon, everyone is enjoying themselves. It's almost like these strangers are distant relatives who have made it there just in time for the meal. And then, just as Elizabeth is about to serve the meal, we'll find out who's behind that door after this break. Did you know that as a member of AUSA, you have access to many benefits? From car rental to entertainment discounts, the opportunities are ample. Visit us online at ausa.org/benefits to learn more. We're back, and Elizabeth and Fritz Vincken have bravely welcomed 3 American soldiers into their small home. They were just about to start their meal when everyone in the place goes quiet. Fritz goes to answer the door, and standing there are, yes, German soldiers. 4 of them. They look cold and hungry and ask to come in. Fritz doesn't move. What should he do?
Elizabeth comes to the door. They explain to her, hey, it's cold. We'd like to just come inside for the night. And she says, you're welcome to come in and to eat until the pot is empty. But we have some visitors already.
Amerikaner?
Ja.
The scene becomes tense. Inside, the American soldiers are reaching for their guns. And outside, the Germans are doing the same. But Elizabeth stops these young men immediately.
But she says, listen, you could be my sons. They could be my sons. It's Christmas Eve. I will not have weapons in my house. The Germans simply lean their weapons up against the wall outside. They come in. The Americans agree to do the same.
The soldiers come in and are ushered to the small table. The Germans are seated on one side, the Americans on the other. Silence. No one is sure what to do, and Fritz is afraid of what will happen next. And then Elizabeth starts to sing a Christmas song, something she knows everyone here will be familiar with. And it works. The men are all moved by this and start to join in themselves. And before you know it,
one of the Germans does speak enough English that they have a conversation and tensions do ease. The Germans actually pull out a bottle of red wine. One of the Germans actually produces some bread. By the way, 2 of these Germans are about 16 years old. That's how young these soldiers are that are in this house. These are teenagers and young men in their 20s. She's right. They really all could have been her sons. And Fritz, this 12-year-old boy, is just looking up at them, and even he realizes how young these soldiers are. So they dine together. One of the Germans, who is a corporal, actually goes and looks at the wounded American and treats his injury. He explains that he was in medical school before he was drafted into the German army.
And then at midnight, Elizabeth stands up and walks to the door.
She invites all the soldiers, except for the wounded soldier, to step outside and look at, what she calls the Star of Bethlehem, the Northern Light. And there's this moment of silence where they're all kind of joined together. It's just one of these kind of beautiful moments. In fact, when she serves the dinner, she says a prayer at the dinner table. And Fritz looks up and he notices tears in the eyes of his mother and the Germans and the Americans. And so I think in that one moment, they really all were thinking of home, because I think that's what people think of at Christmas time, being home. And the fact that they were in somebody's home at such a violent point in World War II, enjoying a moment of peace, having a respite from an unforgiving war, you can see why they would get tears in their eyes.
The men all stay overnight and wake up, for the first time in a while, in a warm place. A place that has become their home for a day.
And when they get up the next morning, they both are going to go off into their different directions. The Germans actually help Elizabeth and the American soldiers kind of put together a rough stretcher that they can put Harry into and carry him away. The Germans actually pull out a map and show the Americans the best way to get back to their lines, because they tell them that the nearby town that they're right on the edge of, Manchu, is in German hands. And so with that knowledge, the 2 parties go off on their own ways. That is how Christmas of 1944 would always be remembered by both those parties. Despite all the propaganda, all the ideological hatred that's built up in a war, it's interesting that at a time like Christmas, people come back to their humanity, even if it's just for a few hours. But that is not the end of the story.
Fritz Vincken was deeply affected by that night he spent around the table with American and German soldiers. He was so moved by how warm the Americans were that he eventually moved to the United States. He started a bakery in Hawaii and later became an American citizen. In 1973, he told this story from his childhood in an issue of Reader's Digest. President Ronald Reagan repeated it in a 1985 speech he delivered to troops in Germany. And Fritz never gave up hope that one day he would meet those soldiers again and tell them how that night had changed his life. And then... Fritz's story was told on the NBC TV series Unsolved Mysteries, a show devoted to, well, getting to the bottom of things. That episode was viewed by a volunteer chaplain at a nursing home in Frederick, Maryland. For years, one of the residents at the home, Ralph Blank, had been telling a story about how a German mother and son took him and two of his fellow soldiers in one Christmas Eve. The chaplain reached out to the show, and shortly thereafter...
And when Fritz sees this, he unites with him and they share a hug and tell the story. And I think it had to be reinforcing to Fritz and Ralph together that, yes, this really did happen. You know, I'm not the only one holding this story. And what a great reunion.
The show's producers said that Fritz took one look at Ralph and immediately knew he was the hurt soldier from that night. They laughed, they cried, they talked about what each had done with their lives. And then Ralph said one thing that caught Fritz completely off guard. He thanked Fritz for what he and his mother had done. Their brave actions had saved his life. Fritz said that reunion was the highlight of his life.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm.
The first time I heard the story, it immediately reminded me of the Christmas truce of World War I, where British and German soldiers, emerged from the trenches, shook hands, exchanged a few items, and had a little bit of a soccer game. So then when you hear this story of Elizabeth and Fritz, you know that it's bigger than that. Maybe Christmas in combat is something that everybody takes pause for. And it's a nice, warm story in a very cold combat world. Humanity can sort of rise above ideology. And that might be the most important lesson. Despite your job, despite your tasks, be kind to others. And for as cynical as the world can be, simple acts of kindness can go a far way. In 1997, Fritz gave an interview to some students, and he said something that I think really transcends the entire World War II. Many years have gone since the bloodiest of all wars, but the memories of that night in the Ardennes never left me. The inner strength of a single woman who, by her wits and intuition, prevented potential bloodshed, taught me the practical meaning of the words goodwill towards men. And I think that sums it up perfectly.
Special thanks to Kevin Hymel for sharing this story with us. His final book in his Patton trilogy comes out in June of next year. Thanks to the United States Army Field Band for their permission to use their versions of O Tannenbaum, Silent Night, and Auld Lang Syne. You can find out more about them at armyfieldband.com.
Hi, this is Gemma McGowan, the chapter president of the General C.W. Abrams chapter in Wiesbaden, Germany. I want to say thanks to some of our voice actors from our chapter. The German female was Maeve McGowan, and the German male was Stefan Cleve. From everyone here in Wiesbaden, our chapter,
and everyone here at Army Matters and AUSA, We'd like to wish you and your family
Happy holidays! To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. AUSA's Army Matters podcast is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported Army Connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Daly, and anchor hosted by Carrie Varouhakis. Anthony Del Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the associate producer and supervising sound editor. Ellen Toner is the content editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Varouhakis and LaSharon Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to the Army Matters podcast wherever you find your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reefs Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word REAP. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you are not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. I'm LaSharon Duncan, hoping you have a great Army day. Hooah!